IVM.
You are being paid to communicate something. Okay, in this case, it is communicate the strength of cement.
Right.
The first objective, my personal objective as a creative person, is to say what is the best thing to do to meet this objective. It's not about me wanting to do something because I think this is creatively cool. Is what's the most honest way to kind of address that objective. You come from there. The honesty of that objective.
A good advertisement is one which sells a product without drawing attention to itself. That was David Ogilvy, and that was many, many years back. Most probably at a time before advertising awards existed. Cut to today, I'm sure the most talked about ads, at least on TV, are the ones that are crying out loud for your attention the most. Which doesn't surprise me at all, because some of the most interesting people alive have probably written those ads. And the fact that they leave their signature on their product super loudly is inevitable. As someone who got into advertising by coincidence myself, I've often wondered what draws these great minds into the industry and what else they would have done with their lives otherwise. Which brings me to my guest today. As far as how I got into advertising stories go, his is the most fascinating that I know of. His name is Jigar Fernandes, but you might know him more through his campaigns. Whether it is the iconic Ambuja cement ad featuring the Great Khali, or the hugely popular Meri Dusri Country campaign during last year's FIFA World Cup, or the Chodna Mat campaign during the India-Australia series, or the most lovely, the more recent 5-minute Or campaign that he did for the sports ministry. Welcome to the show, Jigar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to start off with, pretty much where you started off before all of this happened, before advertising happened in your life. So you're in Bombay, you're a Bombay boy, you're studying in a college in Bombay, and you're an aspiring football player. So that's where pretty much life begins. Right?
Yeah.
So tell me about what were your dreams at that point? What were you planning to do with life?
So growing up, it was like a suburb. I mean, Malad. I was from Malad. People know Malad. A school which is not that active into sports. Okay, but still, because my father was into sports, because my father was a football player back in his school days, so sports came into the family, seamlessly. There was no reason to. So and because he was a football player, we picked up football. And I was living in a sort of a semi-slum kind of a place where football was played because we loved playing football. Okay, football wasn't played because we knew of a guy called Ronaldo, or we knew of a guy, because there was not much football on TV at those times. We didn't even have a TV. So that kind of upbringing where sport became fun because it was sport. Because there was no great heroes, but we loved to play the game and we played the game. So we did well, and it's like the local team started doing well, and we started, beating the guys who were football playing, like the pockets in Bombay, which are known to be good in football, like Borivali or like a Bandra. So these boys from the semi-slums of Malad kind of would go and beat them and stuff like that. Kind of cool thing, okay. So naturally harboring dreams of, taking up football seriously, and then the World Cup would come once every 4 years. So it's like, wow, this is cool shit, and like you sit with your dad and watch the games and stuff like that, and getting better at football. And
so at this point, what are you thinking is your career? You imagine yourself as
I don't think I thought of no, actually not. Honestly, because I was good in studies also at that point of time. So, and because my mom was a teacher and my mom was the breadwinner of the family, so the idea was to kind of go into engineering, because somehow I kind of used to like to break things, break your car and kind of reassemble it and stuff like that. So that career point of view, it was always like maybe get your engineering done and then go on to a engineering job, whatever that was. Okay, could be a shop floor, could be marketing, whatever. Because that's what low middle class families dreamt about. No, like either engineering, CA, or arts is not really cool. No, so science, CA, or engineering. So this because you're good in studies, you have to go to engineering. Right. It was that kind of a thing. There was not really a choice there.
So at this point, one option gets taken out of your plans? Was it an accident?
Yeah, so I was quite good in football actually. I was kind of representing a lot of companies and playing professional football while being while doing my engineering. So a lot of boost came, I mean, you get a boost when you see your name in the paper the next day. You score a hat-trick here, you score an important goal there, and you're the captain of the team. So this kind of you kept getting those feelers that okay, dude, you are good in football. Okay, there's a confidence boost happening because of several reasons. Because somebody's willing to give you a job because of your game. Somebody's saying, hey, you should be sort of going for university selections and stuff like that. Yeah, at about that time, I was kind of captaining a site called Trade India. So then we kind of qualified for the finals of the Super League. I don't know if you follow football, division football in Bombay, but that's like the top league in Bombay as far as club football is concerned. So we were qualifying for that league. We were almost going to qualify for that league, and in the final game, my knee ligament gave way, and then it all kind of collapsed. The whole dream of playing something, because we were not. So we imagined that an injury like that would take a long time to kind of get out of, because now it's like synthetic sort of fibers and synthetic tissues and all that. It kind of, you get a ligament tear and you're back on the field in 3 months, 4 months. Okay, earlier it was like you would take a proper 2 years to kind of come back to playing football. But when that happened, the immediate shift in focus mentally was like, okay, what do you do? Because being from that strata of society, you don't have the luxury of kind of really feeling sad for a long time.
And you're at this point, what are you, about 17 or so?
I was 18, 19, yeah. You kind of feel really okay. But then, as I said, you can't really kind of think about it too much, because you say, abhi exams are rahi hai. Your final exams are coming. Get to studying. Okay, finish your project. So the rigor or the cycle of life keeps you going. There is no yet. Just get into the next thing.
Right.
So it's a good thing actually. I guess you don't get too much time to cry.
And some of the most interesting people I've met are from the advertising industry, right? And one of the most fascinating things that always comes up in conversation is how they made the transition into picking up advertising as a career. When did they know that that's what they wanted to do? And in your case, the church played a fairly big role, right, is what I understand.
Yeah. So like I kind of got into my my job in Mahindra. I finished my. This is continuing the earlier story, so it might help link the whole thing.
Right.
And we're very close to it. So when the injury happened, the next thing for me to do was give my exams, my final exams in engineering, and that I was okay in studies and engineering also. Okay, to find a passed with those things, first class distinction and all that. No. But I was in a very small college in some edge of Kopar Kherane in Vashi. So you never expect a Mahindra or a Mahindra or Tata or somebody to come for placements. It's like you have to fend for yourself once you finish your degree, because it's like so many colleges giving out engineering degrees, right? But yeah, so there was an ad in the newspaper and I can apply for it, and there's a long story there which happened, and I kind of got into an interview in Mahindra, and I kind of did really well in the interview despite being from a very small college. So at that point of time, I used to be active in church also. So there's something called a youth group in church where people come together and they do activities for the youth in general, and some go for a trip here or something, a hike here, or organize some talks here and there. So it's kind of general upliftment of everybody in the all the youth in the church. So one of the things which kind of I found very annoying was how boring the masses were. It's really boring to kind of sit through a mass. It's like you have heard that damn parable. You've heard that one, sort of a story so many times. Okay, it's like, what the hell? You're not going to be moved by the same message. And it's the same funda of advertising, right? It's the same message, you show it 10 times and it's going to be boring, right? I mean, you need to find new and interesting ways of saying the same thing. And it started there, I think. I said, let's do something about this sermon. Sorry, this gospel reading, sorry. Right. And the gospel readings kind of, I was able to talk to the priest and tell him that, okay, well, fine, don't read the gospel like that. Maybe we'll do something cool around it. Maybe we'll do a skit, maybe we'll do a sketch, maybe we'll do a drama, maybe we'll do some fun stuff around it. The audience get the same message, but the audience kind of remembers the whole thing longer. And then the priest was cool enough to say, yeah, go for it and do it and all that. And that's how it started, actually. And somebody said, you know what, this skill is cool for something called advertising. You should really try them. And he just said that and he moved away. I don't think he really meant it or he mean it, but he didn't really kind of emphasize on it. But he stayed with me. Then the next thing you do is start analyzing all the ads you see.
Right.
And you say, hey, this is shit. I could have done it better. Because you are kind of cool. No, you think you're cool. So you would see all those ads and kind of keep saying the same thing. You know what? This is what's supposed to be done here. You kind of start being a judge of things. And when you think that, okay, to main kar sakta hu. And when you start doing it, you realize how difficult it is. But the confidence would come from these things, that when I am cracking a joke on stage, there's an audience which is laughing. So you realize that, okay, fine, you have got something. You can't really put it in words, but you know that you have something in you. That you say something and then people will laugh. You say something and people will feel emotional about. Not really cry, but at least feel for it.
Right.
So when you realize you have that skill, storytelling becomes the next step. And advertising seemed to be. It could have been filmmaking, it could have been anything. But
Exactly.
at that point of time, I just thought advertising was...
But what I found extremely interesting is you obviously do your research, you understand what the industry is, who does what, and then you also decide who do you want to work for. And you meticulously man-mark that person in football language. And then you corner him in a hotel loo, and then you have a conversation with him about your career.
Yeah, it wasn't as dramatic as that, actually. Fortunately. I was, while I was in Mahindra, I was kind of 2 years into my job in Mahindra, I realized I don't want to do that job. Okay. I realized I wanted to go into advertising. And so while I was doing my job in Mahindra, and because, raised by a Hindu mother who says, that work is God, okay, that's what you believe in as a Hindu, right? So I always treated work with utmost dignity and kind of complete honesty in the relationship with Mahindra, despite not really being in love with that job, okay. So kind of I was doing well there in Mahindra, kind of coming up the ladder there, but I realized that it's not really going to be too much fun. But I really wanted to know. It's like something you fall in love with, and you say, "What? I'll try and I can kind of give some percentage of my time every day to know about this thing, right?" Just keep reading a lot of books on advertising. All the books that are there, I read them. I used to read about all the Indian at that point of time, Josie was quite in the news. Josie Paul, because he was.
Why did you decide that it should be Josie Paul?
That's what I've been saying. That this was quite because of his philosophy of doing edgy work and fun work. And they were, in fact, at that point of time, the second, third ranked agency in India. As far as if you consider awards.
To put this in perspective to the listener, when you say edgy work at this point, what are you talking about? Can you give us an example?
For example, they would there could be a hoarding which would say "grow more trees," okay, right. But then David would do it in a different way. David would kind of remove the whole sort of flex from and keep a bare naked hoarding with that skeleton there and put bird nests around on the hoarding on that skeleton. Yeah, on the skeleton. Okay. And then say, grow more trees on a small kind of placard down there. Right. Saying that there are no trees, so these guys are kind of building nests here.
Any brand campaigns that you probably watched at that point?
Was cool at that point of time. Lagero, the whole idea of the whole line Lagero came from Brian David.
Right. But once you're inside, now you've been 2-3 years, you've been wanting to become a part of it. You actually meet Josie twice or thrice over a period of 2-3 years right, before you actually get in.
Yeah. So I was the first time I met him was from Mahindra's. I used to go to all the festivals and all the talks that Ad Club would organize. Right. So I did that for 4 years before I finally moved out of Mahindra's. And in one such event was the Abbeys, which used to happen in Tulip Star. So I met Josie in the loo there actually. It just happened. There's no.
But to put this in perspective, you're a steel salesman.
Yeah, I had my tie in my top pocket. If you want to be very, very visual about it.
but you're at the Abbeys because you're passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be the most formal guy in the whole congregation. I'm very sure. So I met Josie there, and I was like, obviously he didn't know me, and I knew everything about him. I used to read about him, and I said, "Hey, hi, sir." And he's a very friendly guy. He's an extra exaggerated social guy, So he's like out there. He replies like this: that hey man, how are you? I mean, he didn't say my name. He says, "Hey, how are you doing?" and all that. I said, "So you don't know me?" But I've really read about you and kind of think you're doing some cool stuff and all the best. And he says, hey, no, sorry. I'm kind of nervous energy and all that. It's from some yarn he gave. And then 6 months later, I met him in Prithvi, a cafe. I gone there for a play. And we spoke there. And then he said, what's going on? So I said, this is what I want to do. He says, come over. And I went there and kind of showed him whatever ideas I had. And on paper, I didn't really have fleshed out ideas. But he said, yeah, they're cool. What do you want? Can't pay you. So that happened. I said, okay, fine. I can't really sacrifice that big a job because I'm not really coming from a well-off family. I still got my EMIs to pay for my education loan and stuff like that. So I can't really take those calls. And that in the third year, 2007. 2007, he said, you know what, just come over, just spend some time here instead of just jumping ship. That might be irresponsible and all that. Just come and see how advertising looks from the inside. This is what you know from the outside. Bahar se kya hai dekh lo, andar se kya hai dekh lo.
And how was advertising from the inside?
It's very cool. It's better than what I saw from outside actually. So it's a kind of really loved every bit of it. I was there. In fact, I was there about 20 hours a day. Because a small agency working really hard on pitches and stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun. And mind you, I couldn't sit for 8 hours. So I think that was a clear sign what you want to do in life. So not that difficult. And then they liked my work.
Right.
It was a good marriage.
You spent the next 6 years in advertising before the Ambuja Cement Khali ad happens. Would you rate that as one of your best works?
Yeah, you actually, the thing is, if you go back and see the reel, you'll see interesting work. You know, it's like I didn't really certainly turn good overnight. But it's like you see interesting work and you say, hey, this was a cool ad. It was a cool story. And but it really didn't make for a viral like Khali. If you ask me, is Khali my best idea? No, it's not. Okay. There are much more. I thought Khali would be around whatever 6, 7 in my pecking order. As for idea, there's a very cool campaign for Federal Bank which you did.
But before you go into that, what would define a good one for you? Why explain to us why Khali is not one of your best works?
I thought Khali was easy. I thought Khali was easy for me. I just felt that. I don't know. It's kind of weird to quantify, qualify, or justify something like this. But I'm fonder of other ideas.
To put this in perspective, you know, when you see outside, you know, the last 10 years, which are some of the campaigns that you really loved, which is not yours? You know, but you said that's great work. That's the kind of tough stuff I want to do.
A lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff.
Here's one or two.
So I love Nike, of course. A lot of great work happening there. A lot of some really obscure. If you see my list of 10 can ads, I mean, they might be a little different from. Because they kind of really go after some idea which was so difficult to get, and somebody kind of got it, and then you say, "Oh shit, this idea was right there for the taking, but you didn't get it." Because those ideas are kind of the most difficult to get. When I say Khali was easy, I don't mean to be derogatory in any sense in that. But when you look at a Meri Dusri Country, for example, okay, it was an idea right there. You saw it. But nobody said it, and this is happening across the world. It's not just India.
Right.
There across the world, there are so many countries which become passionate for, you know, a certain country during the World Cup. Right. For example, New Zealand. There'll be so many people in New Zealand who might be loving Argentina, but they never qualify for the World Cup. So this was a universal insight which was there on the table, and nobody saw it. So it's so cool to grab that idea and say, yeah, that's cool. Khali also a part of the same bracket, because somebody could have done a similar one with Tyar wrestler, but I think Khali was quite funny because of who Khali was. But it wouldn't have been the same with Undertaker, for example.
Right. Actually, explain that to us, because you know, for an average listener who's not from the industry, how does an idea like having a Khali in an ad for a brand like Ambuja Cement, where does it start? What is the starting point of this process?
First thing is you have to be a responsible communicator. It starts from there. Responsible, when I say, I don't mean to be in the right or wrong way. Right. But I think you are being paid to communicate something. Okay, in this case, it is communicate the strength of cement.
Right.
the first objective, my personal objective as a creative person, is to say what is the best thing to do to meet this objective. Okay, it's not about me wanting to do something because I think this is creatively cool. Is what's the most honest way to kind of address that objective. You come from there. The honesty of that objective. The whole purity of this transaction between you and somebody who's paying you to think of a solution for his brand. Okay, he is in love with his brand.
Right.
He's in absolute love with his brand. Correct. He's living his brand. He's kind of living with it day and night. And he's telling you, an outsider, to come and say, hey dude, get me a solution for this because I think you're cool. So what do you do? So the first thing is to say, let's be very honest with our work. Okay, let's not be cool just for the sake of being cool. See, creative or not, I might have had some failures in life, okay. But at least the attempt would always have been, you would have seen the attempt, the purity of the attempt, that this is made to sell something. This is made to convey a particular message. This is meant to help a particular cause. So you will see that, the honesty of that. And I think it starts from that. And then how does a person become, how do you get an idea? I don't know, honestly, because there's no science to it.
But in this particular case,
I don't know.
I think at this
Honestly,
point, Ambuja had done an ad with, was it Baman Irani? They did something before this,
So
right?
they did a Baman Irani ad in 2002.
Right.
And they claimed like a cement brand should own strength. It's like a no-brainer. And then they did it very well with Baman Irani. Okay, Bhaiya Diwar tu Tik nahi hai, that ad. It still runs.
Right.
And publicists had tried one campaign which kind of deviated from strength and went into a metaphor, a metaphorical wall between Hindus and Muslims, and that wall, we should not have these walls, and we should, sort of for strong walls, go with Ambuja. So there was like a metaphorical space of going beyond the factor of strength. I just thought that somebody like a Ogilvy was kind of doing cool work with just one proposition on a brand like Fevicol. They have not deviated from Chipkata hai. That's all they've been saying for the last, I don't know how many years.
Right.
And have they run out of stories to tell on Chipkata hai? Definitely not. Can you say Chipkata hai for the next 50 years? Definitely yes. It's such a cool proposition for any creative guy to take, right? I said, this is great. You have a brand like cement, and nobody is owning strength.
Right.
Because everybody is saying strength. Right? You take any cement brand, it is saying strength.
Yeah.
So how do you say it in a way that you claim strength? Or at least be considered that he is strong hai. मुझे तो पता ही नहीं ना कौन strong है. सब लोग strong बोल रहे हैं. You don't remember any message. So the idea was that it came from that honesty. But I have to say something that will register strength equal to Ambuja cement. In a way, as much as possible.
Right.
But that's all you can do as advertising. So people enjoy the joke and say, nice and whatever it is. Maybe when they go and go to the shop to buy, or when their contractor says, kaun sa cement lena hai, maybe he says Ambuja. Maybe. That's all you can do.
On that interesting note, we'll take a quick break. See you on the other side.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a great week on IVM Podcast. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We launched our listener survey last week, and we'd like you to really participate in that if you haven't already. We're offering a free mug for a few select winners if you fill out the survey and give us your email address. So go to the website ivmpodcast.com/survey, and there's a link over there to filling out the survey. Please do, and we'd really appreciate that. On The Scene and the Unseen, Amit is in conversation with philosopher and novelist Rebecca Goldstein. They talk about the birth of ideas and how Rebecca infuses them into fiction. On paperback, Anand Sivakumaran of our very own Crocs Tales recommends his favorite non-fiction books and talks about how non-fiction books helped him write his first novel. On Cinemaya, Swati Bakshi is joined by Shonali Bose, who discusses how her background in history and political science influences her filmmaking. On the Filter Coffee podcast, adman Jigar Fernandes is in conversation with the host Karthik Nagarajan to talk about the iconic ads he helped create and his latest creative venture, Tiqui-Tiki. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Filter Coffee podcast, and we're in conversation with Jigar Fernandes. You spoke about how Fevicol has never wavered, in its messages. But Ambuja went here, they tried to do something else. And that's true for many of the other brands, right? You take a brand like Pepsi, it's gone to many different places before they got to where they are today. When I look around me and then I ask myself, what is a really strong brand that I see? I often find myself unable to go beyond a Che Guevara on a T-shirt. Right? You put that image on a coffee mug. You put that image on a cap. You put that image on a T-shirt. It means the same thing. It means the revolutionary spirit.
Right.
And that's an unwavering image, and it's probably one of the most powerful organic imageries that we've seen in life. Right. How does the brand replicate that? Do you say the same thing consistently? Is that how you get there? How do you replicate this for a brand, a soft drink brand or a chips packet?
But Nike did that. Clearly. I mean, it's the very same thing you said for Che Guevara. Right? You could say it for a Nike also. The Nike T-shirt, Nike swoosh on your T-shirt means that you want to do it. It's like I believe in this philosophy.
What did Nike do differently?
Nothing. They did the basics right, simple things right, and that is what we kind of tend to overcomplicate things, and try to be something we are not. I think simple stories, simply told, really connect. Like the Meri Dusri Country, for example. A simple fact. Okay, like Sherlock Holmes says, that nothing is more elusive than the obvious truth. The truth was right there, and it was elusive. He says, say it, and people say, oh, fine, yeah, correct. Meri Dusri Country, Argentina. He was asking himself, Meri Dusri Country, kaun si hai, and all that. You started poking those. It's already there. It was latent. We are just not saying it in those many 3 words. Meri Dusri Country. You're not saying that. So then people started saying that. Like quite cool. So it was that simple that way. That you believe that there is something which is going to click with the audience, and you always ask, what is it for him? Are you going to say that I'm going to put an ad out, okay, and I'm going to say something, be it for 30 seconds or something that will stay with the listener, viewer for life. Okay, so you have to. Khali made him laugh for 30 seconds, for a minute. Khali didn't play any other role.
Right.
But at least he rewarded him for 30 seconds, for a minute. Great. That's the least you can do. Reward him for 30 seconds at least. Okay. Whether he gets a lesson for life, whether he becomes a great human being, whether he changes his behavior, whether he shares the load, in that category. Kind of raise a point about, equality at homes. Is it saying that? The bare minimum you can do is kind of entertain him or not waste his time. Simple. That's the bare minimum you can do.
Yeah, you started talking about Meri Dusri Country. I love that this part of your life. So you just quit Publicis and you've joined Culture Machine, and FIFA is around the corner. And you go back to your client, who's Sony at this point, and then you sort of.
No, I didn't go back to my client actually. It was never a client. Sony was never a client. Kedar Tini was never a client. From Publicis, we had the app.
Okay.
As a client, not the television.
Sony Live.
Yeah, the television was with some other agency. And
but you want it at this point. You want to be part of the FIFA story. Is that right?
I didn't know the brief.
Okay.
I just said that I had heard of Kedar Tini as who was heading marketing at Sony, and I had heard that he was a cool guy, and likes to hear cool ideas and kind of wants to kind of takes calculated risks and all that, and the gut guy and all that. And at the same time, he had heard of me through a common acquaintance. And when I left Publicis, I just dropped a message saying that, hey guys, Kedar, so-and-so person has been kind of trying to play Shajiram Kharjedo and Jagar Ghar Jode and all that, and kind of we should meet. And he says, of course, yeah, and I've heard that you are the next Piyush Pandey and all that. And it's like, yeah, we had a joke about that. And when he met him, it was cool because he's a marketing genius. He's like, again, does the basic things right, understands what the market's all about, understands the client, understands the soul of a creative person. It's like, that when he's saying this, it's all coming from the purity of the heart and nothing because he wants to indulge in creativity and stuff like that. So I think we really liked each other right from the first meeting, and kind of I told him about my father who was a La Liga fan and who runs this sort of, he's been teaching slum children football for the last 25 years, my dad. So I told him that, and so he immediately went out of the room and he brought a La Liga goodie bag for my father.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that's when I decided that let's pay him back with a good campaign. So
More than anything else, I love how football comes back into your life.
It's quite cool actually. It was really cool. This came two passion came back together, back to back. It's like advertising and football, and then kind of it led to me directing the main film, which I had never directed ever. So I directed the main film because I don't know. It's an interesting story there. So there was somebody else who was going to direct the film. Okay. And the last moment, that person
So when you say the film, which film do you mean?
The main film. The main Sony FIFA film. Meri Dusri Country film.
The launch of the Meri Dusri.
The launch of the Meri Dusri Country film.
This is shot
all over India,
different regions.
Yeah. So somebody else was going to direct, and then the last moment he couldn't kind of make it. So I just told Kedar that I'm seeing the film. I have not directed ever, but I think I can give it a shot. And he was like quite cool about it. He says, let's do it. So,
right. So just for everybody to kind of understand what we're talking about, the animation that people see or rather saw when the chat show was on, when the game was starting.
That was not that's a global
standard
thing. That's a global thing. That's a global template that has to play across all countries.
And that's done by FIFA itself.
Yeah. Right. That's not done by Sony.
Right. Interesting. I did not know until you told me that that was a Hans Zimmer composition.
Yeah, that's the Hans Zimmer composition.
Which is amazing, right? And you're talking about the films that you made for Sony before and after, right? Right. And you mentioned earlier that it's just an idea that was there. And you said it's a universal truth, Meri Dusri Country. But how has the overall experience been with you? Before, during FIFA, with Sony?
So I've been in advertising for the last 10 years now.
Right.
Okay. And so there you have many experiences, great experiences, good experiences that were not so great, but you learn from. But I think you realize that there was some campaigns you would see the complete purity of a relationship between a client and an agency. And I think that happened on this campaign, which is why I really love this campaign, because we didn't exchange one mail. There was no PPT. There was no great strategy. There was no great research. It was just a bunch of guys who loved the game who said, let's make it cool. And everything was like, we just had one group on WhatsApp, like 7 people. And that was all. That was all it took to do the entire campaign. It's like there was no planner on the job. There was no servicing head on the job. There was no... so there was everybody. We were kind of switching roles like anything, For some time, the client would say, hey, let's do this. I said, hey, very cool. Was it a junior servicing guy or was it a junior creative guy who was saying, we kind of just kind of put the goal in front.
But tell me, when you met Josie in the Tulip Star restroom at the beginning, you said at that point, you're someone who was very excited about advertising and you had a point of view and you were saying that, hey, I can do this better. You see an ad, you have an opinion.
Yeah.
And you had a certain process at that point. And cut to a decade later, here you are probably having created one of the probably what would be the most recalled campaign of this year, I guess. What is the change between that guy and this guy in terms of your process? What has changed?
A lot of change actually.
Yeah.
A lot of change, because I still have my first portfolio, which I was taking across agencies then, and so what has changed.
What is the one biggest thing that changed?
I think the understanding of what really works, what touches, and I think you're a little naive when you were entering advertising, in the sense that you thought something was cool, so it needed to be done, but you don't really know whether it will work in the market or no. And there is often a junior's point of view, a junior who thinks too shallow, it's just about the idea for him, him or her. It's just about that. You're so possessive about the thing that you feel it's cool, but your judgment is not really the best in the world because you have not had the experience of seeing so much work from around the world. You don't have that. You do not know whether that piece of work is going to work for the brand. What is the strategy issue? So all these things kind of just ensure that you are kind of chasing one brief for a month without really landing on what is really required. But now it doesn't happen that way. Because this learning, that you will say, maybe my first idea Okay, this is how I'll answer this. My first idea today is way better than my first idea 10 years ago.
So you have a tattoo in your left forearm.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a story to that.
Yeah.
Tell us when it happened and what is the story.
So while I was in my Mahindra days trying to get out of Mahindras and go into advertising, I was really suffering up for a point because it's not getting to you that you really want to get out and you can see where you want to be, but you are stuck in one place. And that's when I saw Shawshank Redemption. And when I saw Shawshank Redemption, I was like really sad till that point. And I was watching it on a small IBM, those old computers, sitting at home and at 1 o'clock in the night. And I remember where I was because I remember that moment when I saw that end scene and I said, shit. And I kind of... so till that point, I was like, damn. Yaar, ye marne wala, this is what it's going to be. I'm going to be institutionalized in this company and this is what is going to happen to me. Okay, and I was like, really? And I said, are you going to die? And it's like, yes, he's going to die because he took the rope and stuff like that. And then the freedom happened. I was like, shit. So I saw that movie quite a bit.
So did you read the book first or?
No, I saw the film. I saw the film first. Okay. And then this is the place where he goes to in the end, Seotoneo. He goes to the Mexican town called Seotoneo. And
that's what is the tattoo in your
Yeah, that's the tattoo on my... That's the dramatic stuff for you.
No, that is quite a story.
Yeah.
So what is...
Corny as it is.
Oh, really? But when did you get the tattoo? Did you get it when you were in Mahindra or after you reached the Mexican island?
No. Yeah, good question. So I did it when I thought I was doing well in advertising.
Okay, it's a rhetorical tattoo, right?
Yeah.
Great.
I just thought I've reached that place. That's when.
That's very poetic. Yeah. So, what is the next Piyush Pandey, Jigar Fernandes watch? What do you watch in cinema? What are you watching right now? What are you reading?
Watch. I'm kind of watching Breaking Bad right now. I
For the
saw
first
it.
time?
No, I saw it again. I saw it earlier, and my wife hasn't seen it. Kind of sitting together and watching it again, and kind of enjoying that right now. I'm just studying it more than seeing it. I'm studying, and then just it's kind of quite cool when you go back to the same series again, and you've seen even Mad Men when you go and see it again. Right. You kind of just see as to what happened, why at that particular time, and then the character arc kind of become more interesting.
Yeah.
Because you see things with the knowledge of what's going to happen in future. So you see them in reverse, their life in reverse, and you say, oh shit, this is what happened.
Do you have a favorite Mad Men episode? I love the first episode. I've seen it probably 15 times. I just love the
I love the show. Yeah. I love the one where he talks about the carousel.
The carousel,
yeah. I think that's super cool. And also the episode where they kind of break off and they say, this is what we want to do. Then start the new agency.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the last episode as well. The
the jury's out on that, no? Some people don't really like that too much.
That's true. True. So a lot has changed since Piyush did the Fevicol campaign. A lot has changed since you started in advertising, right?
Yeah.
But if you have to pick how the industry has changed in the last 4-5 years, what will be your top 3?
I think the need to stay alive on the viral market, it kind of has become top of mind, because you kind of people have found a very different parameter to saying what is working and what is not. Okay.
So when you say viral market, are you talking about content versus advertising? What becomes
really talked about?
Right.
So earlier, you would know a Cadbury ad is talked about because you would see the child in the house doing the dance the girl did, after getting onto the ground. So you know that, hey, this is cool. Now people see that there's a clear proof on what is working and what is not.
Right.
If it is shared on social media like it is, and if it is everybody's talking about it, tweeting about it and all that, and it is a bona fide hit. You see it and you can't hide it. There are ways and means of people sort of getting paid views and all that, but heart of heart, you know that it wasn't really a hit. Because it's not steeped into culture. Now you know how an idea can seep into culture. And when you see that, yeah, this is a hit. Earlier you would never know that. How would you know that earlier? Kitna popular hua?
What do you mean
When somebody
seep
says in the
into-
train, somebody shouts across the compartment and says, "Arey Sunil Babu, kaise ho?" So you know, ye ad hit hai. Now people are doing that via memes and via sort of, that's how it's seeping into culture. So the need to be present there is what has changed a lot. And that's the parameter that every brand is looking for. That's changed big time. And then subsequent to that, everything else has changed. I think.
Has it changed the way you work?
Not really.
Has it changed your process?
No, it doesn't change my process because but the fundamentals remain the same.
Right.
I think through the course of this chat, I think I spoke about a few fundamentals which the honesty of it and what does the customer, what does the audience take away from it, and are you respecting his time and stuff like that. So those things are not changing at all. It's just that the media has changed. The platform has changed. The train hasn't changed.
The other thing that probably has changed is also how the industry perceives creative talent. Right? Has that changed at all, for example? Is it more about the creator?
I think that is some things are happening that it's that you see more and more interesting work coming out of agencies which are not really the traditionally big powerhouses. Okay, which means that there is a certain rise in the sort of stature of boutique agencies. These small agencies run by people with a certain sort of they have a book, which they have a piece of work, body of work, which kind of spells who they are, and then they kind of there are brands willing to go to them,
right?
Despite them not being really big agencies. So I think that has kind of it was there all along, but kind of I see more of that happening in the last 7 to 8 years.
So the creative leadership has in a way moved away from the citadel, which was
It has not. It'll never.
large
I don't think
branch.
it'll never move away. I think leadership will never move away. Because
Now, what I mean is today, where an idea comes from, like you said, it could be a very boutique small agency.
Yeah.
It could also be a creator. Right? It could be an artist. Right. So in that sense, has this been democratized?
It always was. It's just that now it is. Anybody can just kind of do something and put it out there and say, "Hey, this is what it is. This is cool." So that way, definitely yes.
But not democratized to this extent, right? See, today we are happy to
Absolutely, agree
trust
with you.
your brand
Totally agree with
to
you.
a group which fundamentally is rooted in comedy.
Correct.
Right? You're
Correct.
okay with that brand, that group taking your brand and creating something out of it.
Correct. Absolutely.
So in that sense, how do you see the whole advertising versus content conversation? Do you see anything that you like? Do you see anything that you're excited
I think in the
about?
content space, we've not done too much. I think as an industry, we haven't done much. What is happening in the content space is more or less ads disguised as content.
Interesting.
I think that is never going to work. Just because how much ever we might want it to happen, but the audience will always be smarter than you. Okay, you want the audience to be dumb and you want the audience to kind of really take in what you're trying to say. But I think eventually they catch up and they know that at the end of 18 minutes when I saw this content, at the end of it was it content for content's sake or was it an ad? And they can see through that, and then it's no fun.
In which case, how do you see an integration in a web series or an integration in a long
That
form
has been happening.
sketch?
That has been happening. So that is nothing new in that. That has been happening since the day James Bond
Right.
would drive an Aston Martin.
Yeah.
That doesn't change at all.
Right.
See, there is a difference between in film placement and branded content. Huge difference between the two. Can James Bond drive another car? Of course he can drive another car.
Drove
What is so
four
great
in one
about
of
it?
the films,
What is so
didn't
great
he?
about it?
Yeah.
So but then that's in film placement. I have a film, a great story. I can drink Pepsi or I can drink Coke. I'll just give it out to the highest bidder and say Pepsi is great. But there will be content weaved around a brand. What is the content that is weaved around a brand that makes it cool? That is something that we have yet to see happening.
So what's next for you? Where do you go from here?
Oh, okay. I'm starting a small small writer's room. Just 4 or 5 people. It's called Tiqui-Tiki. The place is called Tiqui-Tiki.
Of course.
Okay, the whole idea of, you just play. Just play. Don't be don't be a dick. Get the client in, play with the client, and then just have this jamming session with the client, and then just talk about a brand and what the problem
is.
For
the uninitiated, this is the Spanish School of Football.
Yes. This is the Spanish School of Football, which says that nobody needs to be a big hero.
Yeah.
Let's give one-touch passes and let's score goals together. Anybody can score and let's have fun. The metaphor comes from play, so I think it is a really cool thing for us to have.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So then we'll be focusing on advertising and cool things we think people should do as content. I think let's look at that way. Instead of saying that cool content, I think that let's do anything. Like what Red Bull does is cool content. It's just that it comes from the philosophy of Red Bull, so it works. Like can that be done for Pepsi? I don't think so. Can that be done for Thumbs Up? Yes, I think it can be. So it has a brand DNA which flows into the content. Which is what I was telling you. But can it be anything else? I don't think. It needs a brand like a Red Bull to do what it is doing. It's interesting. Good content.
Excellent. Good luck for Tiqui-Tiki.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So that was our show. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And filter_coffee. It's coffee with a K on Instagram.
Family businesses get a bad rap. At one time, they were looked down on for getting rich, for being too ambitious. Today, they're still looked down on, but for not being ambitious enough. Not agile enough, not modern enough, too traditional in their mindset. The biggest brands and business houses in the country started out as humble family businesses. It's the way India has done business. Join Sonu Bhasin in conversation with stalwarts of Indian family businesses on the Inheritors podcast series by Bloomberg Quint. Discuss the highs and lows, the needs and pressure points of building a business legacy that spans generation.
Hi listeners, we at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund have come up with a special podcast series called MF 101 in collaboration with Bloomberg Quint. MF 101 is an informative series that will help you understand the recipe behind mutual fund investments. And what's more, it's coming from the chefs of the mutual fund buffet table, from the very own fund managers and analysts who are the manufacturers of the funds that help you realize your investment goals. New episodes out every Monday. You can listen to the show on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.